this interesting like insight from like I've heard is that most of us believe that motivation precedes action. So you get motivated and you do something, but actually
Mm.
motivation comes after action, along with action.
Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of AlphaDelta, a video series on my YouTube channel where I have conversations with people who operate at a higher level than most, with the hopes that it motivates, inspires people to become the best version of themselves. So today, my guest on this episode is Tenzin Tsundu. I said it right, yeah? Yeah,
Yes, very
Tenzin.
close.
Awesome. Very close. All right. Maybe you'll pronounce it properly when doing the introduction. But Tenzin is someone that I went to university with. It's someone that I worked closely with in the residency halls. And I think his journey and his experience and the things he's done in college and even what he's working on now, it's very impressive. And I think he definitely has a lot of insights that can motivate a lot of people. So Tenzin, for the people who don't know who you are in the audience, could you just introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do, and where do you go to school?
Oh, thank you, Joe, for having me here. Like, really, really excited to be here. So I'm Tenzin. I'm an student from Nepal. I was a student from Nepal, small country in Asia between India and China. I came to Marist College to study finance and philosophy. And then right now I am working as an associate consultant at Bain.
Awesome. Great introduction. So yeah, the first question I have for you is, what are you passionate about and why?
Oh, so I think the first thing that I'm really passionate about is like learning and growing. Since I was young, I always wanted to become more competent, more able, to make sure like I can add value to the world, right? You never want to be someone who cannot add value. So that's something
Right.
that I'm really passionate about. Second thing I'm passionate about is helping others. I grew up in a Buddhist household, so compassion and kindness are some of the values that were ingrained in me by my parents and something that I've accepted and learned to practice as I grow older.
Nice. So it's compassion and then just like passionate about learning, growing, and just educating yourself in general.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So taking a step back, I
Mm-hmm.
want you to give us an idea of what your childhood is like. What was it like
Mm-hmm.
growing up? What do you spend your time doing? How was it like for you in high school? Just give us a general idea of, what was it like growing up for you.
So when I was growing up, I grew up in the capital city, Kathmandu, Nepal. It was a developing city, a lot of like crowded buildings, streets. I went to a really good school, I would say. So I think childhood was like full of opportunities. I was like the first like person in my family to go to school and stuff, right? Um, like in a sense that
It's
first
interesting.
series of in my generation,
Right.
not in my no, it means not the first person, but like first generation to go because there are people who went to school, but my parents
Right.
did not go to school, right? So um,
Hmm.
it was full of possibilities, and our parents really believed that education would lead you to places, and they were right in certain ways. So they really focused on us having good education. So I was there, uh, and yeah, I always loved asking questions, doing random things. I know me and my friends would, as Kathmandu is surrounded by hills, we would just point at a hill and we'll be like, we'll go to that hill today, and we would just find new places to do stuff. But nothing in particular comes to mind.
Right. No, that's really interesting. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that, you grew up in an environment that really valued education, and that was sort of ingrained in you
Mm-hmm.
from the get-go. And that also valued, like you had not just within your family setting, but even just your surroundings and your friends and everything, right? There's always this like um sense of curiosity, this quest for
Mm-hmm.
adventure, knowledge, or just discovering new experiences, right? That's sort of
Yeah.
what I'm understanding. Yeah.
yeah, that was like a very like I would say like 6 to 10 year old period. But after
Right.
then, the education system in Nepal, like I think most education system in developing countries, focuses on memorization and discipline
Right.
rather than
Yeah.
critical thinking and learning. So
True.
after 10, if you ask questions, if you're curious and you don't listen to your teacher, you get beaten. One
Yeah.
of my
You sort
core
of.
memories,
Mhm.
yeah, one of my core memories is like I read this encyclopedia and my teacher was saying something about the stars. And I've read it in that encyclopedia that what he was saying was wrong. And I was like, bro, you're wrong, right? He
Yeah.
was like, come up. And I came up. He beat the shit out of me for telling he
What?
was wrong.
What?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And
So
after
it's
that, the curiosity and like ability to think for myself slowly decreasing. And it was more about like following
right.
authority and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really interesting because I would say it's it's like you said, developing countries, that's sort of like the older you get, that just becomes the educational practice
Hmm.
in a sense, right? Because even in Kenya, it's exactly the same, right? Like at some point, the teachers don't really care whether like you're really understanding or like whether you're thinking critically about the content. It's more about like just memorize the content, make sure you're like exam ready, you go through the textbook, and that's about it.
Hmm.
You're not really like asked to, you're not challenged to ask questions. You're not given that opportunity as well to ask questions, right? And if you do, you're sort of labeled as the
Hmm.
bad kid, as a kid who doesn't listen.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. um okay, cool. So my next question is,
Hmm.
like, walk us through how you got to where you are today. Just tell us a bit about your career path. And the follow-up
Hmm.
question is, sorry, yeah, and like, what are some of the things that you've done over the years in your career?
Okay, so my high school life, I was very curious. I would work really hard, whatever I got into, and I wanted to like be an astrophysicist when I was younger.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
dreamy eye kid. Read like Stephen Hawking one time, and I was like, oh
Right,
wow, so cool. The universe is amazing.
right.
Studied physics and found out like it's not that amazing. Uh, right? And the thing about physics, studying physics, maybe if I've studied physics somewhere else, I would still love it. But studying physics in
Right.
Nepal, we had to memorize like 170 theorems and with diagrams and
Wow.
stuff. And it was all rote memory. It was
Jeez.
like you're not
Yeah.
understanding what's happening. You're just like copy pasting whatever the
Right.
teacher comes.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, our lectures would literally be like the teacher would come, start writing on the board, you start copying. He would write for the entire class a theorem or like two theorems, right? And then he
Yeah.
would leave. Like that's it. Like there was not even like question session. It was just like, yeah, know this for your exam, right?
Literally.
So
Yeah.
that happened, and I slowly started drifting away.
Hmm.
Like I would bunk classes and like not pay attention anymore because that was not me. Like I could not memorize when I was younger.
Right.
um, and then yeah, I slowly started drifting, not doing well in school. I had like a 2.8 GPA if I remember. So it was really bad, right? And then I've always like after I graduated from high school, I felt as if there was something in me like incomplete. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm not
Right.
doing anything. I'm just watching anime. I'm like not going to school. Like, I'm hanging
Right.
out with friends for like 5 hours talking about politics and shit that nothing would change my life, right?
Right.
I was like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna do something. And then I started
Hmm.
volunteering. And I
Interesting.
took 2 gap years before coming to college. So
Really
I started, yes.
interesting.
So yeah, I was just like traveling around trying to like, help wherever I am. And at that moment, when you're young, you feel like, oh, you know everything. You're so competent. It's
Right.
like I was at that
Right.
stage.
Mhm.
But when I was volunteering, I met like amazing volunteers and other people who've studied in the States, who've come to Nepal to help. And when I was working with them, I realized, fuck, they're super intelligent. They
Yeah.
can articulate better. They can write better. They can think better. Like
Right.
I'm dumb in front of them. And I was like, fuck, I
Right.
need to educate myself. And that's
Right.
when I started like, okay, I'm gonna actually try and be the best version of myself. Then I came to Marist. Was an amazing place. At least for me, learned a lot. My first class, I remember the professor asking me, Tenzin, what do you think? And I was like, I get to think. That was not, that was
Right.
not, the plan
Yeah.
in my old school. So I that was like a core memory. And at the end, like at Marist, I was able to do a lot. I was the student body president. I also
Right.
became the valedictorian. Um,
True. True.
and yeah, and now I'm at like a consulting company where our job is to think critically about problems. So I went
Right.
from taught that I was not allowed to think to now having like thinking for everything that I do.
Yeah. Awesome. 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 That's very interesting. It's like it's interesting to see just the correlation, like especially in the education system, right? It's like, if you didn't get that exposure to actually see that,
Mm-hmm.
there's systems out there, or there's people out there that think more critically, aren't just set in like some specific way of thinking, right? You wouldn't have decided, like had that moment of realizing that epiphany, like, wait a minute, I needed to change, like something needs to like improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find that that's very, very interesting. And I think that's it's very common with a lot of people. It's like you have that moment in your life where it's like almost like a tipping point, right? It's where you realize
Mm-hmm.
that something happens, or you get exposed to something and you realize like you have to make a shift, like a drastic shift automatically, and then
Mm-hmm.
your life just sort of progresses forward from that. um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
cool.
And there's some like key things that help you. They're like one thing that has helped me is being intentional with your time and intentional with your
Right.
habits, right?
Mm.
Because most of us live our life like sleepwalking. We're just
It's
like
true.
following like
Yeah.
a crowd
Get
or
up, go
following
to a
like
job, go to
system.
work, come back, watch TV, have dinner, sleep, get up again, do the same, and then on the weekends you might do something different, right?
Yeah, and that different thing is also just like random different, right? Maybe your friends are hanging out. You're not intentional about it. And you can do your job. I'm not saying like if you do your job, you're not being intentional. It's like, am I doing the job that I want? What
Right.
are the things that I want out of this job? What are the values that I'm providing to this job? Right?
Right.
How long have I committed to this job? I'm intentional. I've set myself, and what are my like goals for this job? What do I plan to learn, get out of this job, right? So if you're intentional about everything, I feel like you automatically become better. And the second thing is
Right.
you have to set rules for yourself, right? One of my
Absolutely.
rules in college was I will never miss a class. No matter what
Mm.
happens, I'll not miss a class. Like I'll
Yeah.
wake up, I'll just go to class. Like even if I have 1 hour, I'll
Right.
go to class. So
Yeah.
you have to set rules for yourself and stick by those rules.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In fact, like I have the same thing in my life right now, except I don't call it rules, I just call it non-negotiables. It's like things that I just cannot negotiate on. I'm like, yeah, like likewise in college, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna miss a class, right? Like that's a non-negotiable. Or like I'm not gonna miss an exam, that's like a non-negotiable. I'm not gonna miss an assignment, that's a non-negotiable, right? Right now, it's like I'm not gonna miss a gym workout, right? That's like a non-negotiable for me, right? And of course other many things, right? So I agree with that. Like you definitely have to set, like whether it's rules or non-negotiables, whatever it is, but you just have to set a standard and then just live by it, like 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question for you is, what has been one pivotal moment in
Mm-hmm.
your life that has shaped your career? And the follow-up question to that is, what has been the greatest achievement in your career so far?
Um, Pivotal moment in my life that just shaped my career. I think it was just that when I decided like after volunteering and meeting these amazing people, I decided I was like, I need to do something. It's not like I don't want to like be stagnant. I don't want to just live my life and after 50 years wake up and be like, oh, what happened, right? I think that was like the most pivotal moment. It happened in Nepal. Um, I was traveling and it was a lot of reflections. And I think that is what people get wrong is pivotal moments don't happen in like a moment, right? Everything does not happen in a moment. It's like a gradual process, and there's
Right.
like a climax, but there's always a gradual process. It's always going on the back of your head. There's so many experiences that you're collecting, and it all fits in together, and you're like, fuck. But it's not something, everything, all the sensations don't come in like one time. And
Right.
how it has shaped my career is I've become everything I've wanted to be. right? It's like Think and Grow Rich, right? You first
Interesting.
have an
Yeah.
expectations for yourself, and then you work on implementing it. If you cannot even like like have that thought in the process, you want something, you'll never get it. You really need to like think of a future for yourself and what
Right.
kind of person you want to be and work towards it, right? Create an identity for yourself.
Right. Right. Of course. Of course. That's
And
really interesting. Uh-huh.
yeah, and my biggest achievement in life, um, I think like the biggest achievement in my life and is like
So far, by the way, doesn't
I
mean that like it's gonna you're gonna achieve a lot more in
oh
the future, but so far, yeah.
ah yeah, the so far is just like I my ability to push forward. Like I feel I don't know where I got it. I don't know how I did it, but something in me, I like achieved a sense of I need to do something all the time, you know? Like it's not I need to do something as in like, oh, I want to work 24 hours 7. It's more about, oh, am I the person my younger self would be proud of? Am I the person that I would be proud
Right.
of? My parents would be proud of? And
Right.
what are the discrepancies? Okay, how do I feel those discrepancies, right? So that's my biggest achievement is I've never lost the motivation or like the discipline to push forward towards what my ideal self is.
Right. Right. That's really interesting. Cool.
Mhm.
Cool. So my next question for you is, what is the biggest challenge you ever had in your life, and how did you overcome it?
So biggest challenge. So I've been through a lot of like um stuff, but I think like biggest challenges in when it happens environmental reasons, right? When it's external. So there was like a
Right.
big earthquake in Nepal, and there was like so many natural disasters, and we had to live in tents for months.
Wow.
So in those times when it's external, the way I think most people overcome it, and in my life it has been true, it's like friends and families. You need a really tight knit friends and families who you can depend on, right? You don't want
Right.
to be the person that believes like you are independent of others. Because
Right.
the truth is, we live in an interdependent world. All of us depend on each other so much. And the best way
Right.
to live in this world is through kindness and compassion, being of value to others. And if you live
Right.
your life thinking that other people have to be valuable to you, I think in those moments when there are like really crisis, you'll realize that you have no one to stand beside you. So
Right.
in those moments, I think it was friends and families having like people you can count on, people who like suffer with you essentially, right? And
Right.
internally, my biggest challenge for myself is about us just being staying disciplined, you know? There's
Right.
so many stimuluses in the world that are constantly trying to grab your attention, trying to lead you to where they think you should be.
Right.
And right? And you are a person and you're not like a rock, right? You cannot
Exactly.
you get excited about different things, right? And you like follow them, and it's constantly coming back and telling yourself, okay, even if it's for 5 minutes, I'll do it, right?
Right.
Even like not going to class, sometimes you have party, sometimes like getting your friends, you're having a party and the next morning you have a 8 a.m class and you're like, fuck, I'm not gonna go, it's like my friend's party, right? But you have to tell yourself, like, even if I'm 30 minutes late, I'm gonna go to the class. I'm just gonna show my
Right.
face there, right?
Right.
Even if I'm not gonna work out today, I'm gonna go to the gym and just look at the gym,
Right.
be there, right?
Yeah.
So that has been like the hardest thing that I'm trying to overcome, and it's a constant progress right now. Like maybe I'm in a good state that it's not a problem anymore, but like after a few days, especially if life hits you with like something unexpected, then your whole routine
Right.
breaks, and 3 months passes and you realize, oh, I did not do anything on my routine for the last 3 months.
Right. Right. That's true. True. That's really important. I think, yeah, no, discipline is it's an interesting one for sure. And it's like it's something that can be learned and developed. And it's like something that you constantly have to work on. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's not just like one day you wake up and you're a disciplined person. Like, no, you have to be like actively working towards it. Because like you said, right, there's so many stimuluses out there in the world. There's always going to be something trying to grab your attention all the time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting. Yeah, so my next question
Yeah,
for
and
you is, sorry, go
so
ahead.
there's a really good quote by Aristotle, right? And he
Uh,
says like,
that's one of my
we
favorite.
are what we, yeah, I know, we are what we
Yeah,
repeatedly do, right? Excellence is not an act, but a habit, right? So
that's
discipline is not an act or an identity, but it's a habit, right?
right.
The more you do it, the more you become it.
You become it. That's a really good quote. It's a really, really good quote.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. So my next question for you is, what advice would you give someone who's trying to do the same things as you?
Uh, One thing that I give advice to, I think most people, is like being present, and
Okay,
being present both physically and mentally.
right.
So what I mean by that is showing up to your classes, right? Showing up to clubs and events where you have to be, showing up to volunteering work. Just the act of showing up creates a lot of serendipity. You meet amazing people, right? If I was not volunteering or showing up to that place, I would never met like those students from American universities, and I would never have thought about coming to America. Like
Right.
just that,
Yeah.
I don't know, like serendipitous encounter
Right.
literally paved my path forward, right? So that is, luck is something that you not create, but luck is something that you can, surface area of luck is something that you can increase. And showing
Right.
up is the best things, right? When you show up to classes, you realize, oh, my professor talked about a paper topic. Now I don't even have to think about a paper topic because she likes it. And if I write something on it, she would probably give me an A, right? Or he would probably give
Literally.
me an whatever,
Yeah.
right? Because they were talking about it, and they're talking about a problem. You're like, oh, that problem is interesting. And in exams, you realize that most of the stuff that you give exams for are stuff you've, learned in class. So you don't
Right.
even have to like go, and you just have to like revise. But if you paid attention in class, you can do it. And that also is the same when you're hanging out with your friends and having fun, like when you're having fun with your friends, you should not be worrying about homework. Like
Yeah.
you should be there and like just enjoying the moment. You should not be worrying about homework. And when you're in your class, you should not be worrying about hanging out with your friends or like
Friends.
talking about an
Right.
event or thinking about like everything. You're in your class, right? So
Right.
that's physically and mentally. And that's the
Right.
main advice that I give is like, be physically act like present wherever you want to be. That's what you said, right? For yourself, where I want to be physically present intentionally, right? And then you become physically present intentionally, and also mentally present after that.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I 100% agree with you. I think having a presence or just being present, it's crucial, right? Because if you're not, like, you just watch your life go by, like you
Mm-hmm.
days I mean, hours feel, I'm sorry, seconds feel like minutes, minutes feels like hours, hours feels like, days become weeks, and so on and so forth. And like time just passes you by if you're just not fully present and taking, account of what's going on mentally, physically, and just, it also just allows you to just live a more fulfilled life, right? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
very present, and you're able to just enjoy things a lot better
Yeah,
through
there's
that.
a great quote by Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda. It's like, yesterday is
Yeah,
history, tomorrow is mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it is
that's true.
called the present.
Present. Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Master Ugwe with those philosophical
Yes,
quotes. Whoa.
yes, yes.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. All right. So my next question for you is, where are you heading to? What are some of the things you're hoping to accomplish in the next couple of years?
Definitely. So I just, I'm heading to, like, so my goal in life is to become more competent until a certain point where I believe I can make a maximum impact, right?
Right.
So I'm heading like at my job, and what I'm doing right now is like I'm working on like this decarbonization and net zero strategy for utilities right now. And it's so fascinating, the space about how industries, like we all hear words like net zero, decarbonization, but how are companies actually going to do that, right? So it's like
Right.
something that my firm is helping utilities find out on how they can reach those goals they've set for themselves, right? And it's better for the environment too. So working through that and just learning, and every day I come to the office, I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room because everyone is so intelligent and so
Right.
hardworking, and they're all kind. At Bain, like we care about our people, so that has been an amazing journey. And that is what I want to progress for the next 2 years or 3 years of my life. It's just learning all the skills and tool sets to help me become a better consultant, right? So,
Right.
and I believe like if you're a good consultant, like you can be anything. And if you see a lot of like executives in the world, they've had a consulting history. It's
Experience,
because,
right?
right, the thing is, I saw it firsthand. Like you come with a problem, like the client gives you a problem or there's a problem that needs to be solved. And there's a group of people who have never heard about the problem before. They have no
Right.
experience with it. And suddenly they start doing stuff and they start creating a framework to solve a problem. And after a week, they create this interesting strategy to solve that problem. And you're like, how did we go from a 0 to 100 in a week?
Right.
It's just
Right.
these people they've mastered the art of thinking, I would say.
That's
And
true.
it's just for me, it's that. And after that, I would love to like be in a place where I can have a maximum impact and see where I can add value to society.
Right. That's interesting. I like that. That's really, really cool. All right. So the next set of questions are a bit more personal.
Okay.
And the first question I have for you is, do you practice self-improvement? And if you do, what do you do?
So I definitely do practice self-improvement. And the way I do it is habit formation.
Right.
The art of the power of compounding, if you know Atomic Habits by
Yeah. Yeah.
James
I was
Clear,
literally
it's
gonna
insane.
say, great book,
Yes.
amazing book. Yeah.
If you just improve yourself by 1% in a
1%.
year, you'll improve 37%, right? Or
Yeah.
something like that. But if you
Yeah.
become worse by 1%, you will be near zero in a year. So
Yeah.
you really need to like be intentional. And what I do is I have morning routines and my night routines, and those are non-negotiables for me. I
Right.
wake up, I work out for 20 minutes. I'm not like, I don't want to go to the gym, but I want to stay fit. I meditate, I make my tea and enjoy the sun, right? At night, I play my guitar, I read. I always read before I sleep, no matter how tired I am, no matter if I came back from a party, I read at least a page before I sleep.
Yeah.
So those are
Nice.
the things that are um, my habits and how I improve myself. But just my work itself is so fascinating and so much learning that just by working, I'm constantly improving myself. And that's the fun part about being in areas where like they make you think and help you push boundaries for yourself.
And that's really interesting. I mean, I think we're similar in that sense that like I also have a morning routine, I also have a night routine, and it's literally almost the exact same things. It's like wake up, meditate, like gratitude journal, go to the gym, come back, get ready, go to shower, have my coffee, yada yada, go to work. And then the night routine is very, very similar. It's like read before I go to bed, and yeah, and then go to sleep. It's fascinating, very, very fascinating. But we're just very similar in
Yeah.
that sense. Yeah, so my next question is, in what is one area of your life you feel you could improve on?
One area of my life that I feel I can improve on. It's being present. The thing is,
Right.
I've noticed because I had like before I started working in September, so I had like a summer break from um the summer to August, right? So I had 3 months gap where I did nothing, literally did
Right.
nothing. I was just like waiting for work to start. My life was stagnant, right? I had no intention on how I'm going to spend those 3 months. So I started scrolling through social media, and it's become such a habit that I cannot concentrate for more than like 15 minutes without being like agitated.
Wow.
And that is like a really bad thing, and I'm improving it. But that's one thing I'm struggling with is like being present for like the ability to work deeply, right? That's what I'm working on.
Right. Deep
And
work.
Deep Work
Yeah.
is another book by Carl Newport. Like if you
Yeah.
all want to know the art of deep work, and he makes really good points of why we should all be like able to work deeply. And that's what I'm working on right now and struggling with. And that's why I delete my social media during the week, but it looks like I need to delete it during weekends too.
Into weekends as well. Yeah. Well, it's good you're meditating, because I can't say like meditation
Mm.
does really help with being present. It
It
really, really
helps so
does a
much.
lot, a lot, a lot. Like literally just a simple 10 minutes a day. But going back to the atomic habits, like 1% every day. If you do 10 minutes, but over a 3-month period, right, you're gonna be way more like present than like, you know, you trying to do 30 minutes every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just one, like 5 minutes, just show up. Just say 2 minutes. When I'm brushing, I'm just gonna focus on the bristles of my
Yeah,
toothbrush. You like that's the thing, right? Just 2 minutes, and it's so hard. There's so much reluctance. But have you noticed, like, once you start doing it, then you can do more.
exactly. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah. In
weird.
fact, what you've actually touched about is like in the book, he talks about like basically breaking down whatever you're trying to do to the most simplest task possible. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
like, let's say you wanted to go to the gym and then you're like, you know what? My goal tomorrow is just to put on my shoes for the gym. Right. But it's like by the time you put on your shoes, you're like, okay, maybe let me step
Mm-hmm.
outside, right? So then you step outside and you're like, okay, let me just go to the gym. So you go to the gym and okay, now I'm here. I might as well work out, right? And it's literally like
Exactly.
just those small, like you said, you know, it's just small little actions that just compound and it just leads you towards accomplishing what the actual habit or goal is that you're trying to develop or achieve.
And there's this interesting like insight from like I've heard is that most of us believe that motivation precedes action. So you get motivated and you do something, but actually
Mm,
motivation comes after action. It
action.
follows actions. So you
That's
do
true.
something and then you get more motivated. So I'm sure you've noticed that you don't want to write a paper, but once you start writing, you're in the middle of it. You keep on writing. You're like,
Yeah,
you start writing for like 2 3 hours. It's just like
absolutely.
that first sentence is always the hardest, but
It's always,
motivation
but once you
follows
do it,
actions.
yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I agree. And then I'm even thinking just about like, you know, my years in uni, like studying computer science, right? Yeah, I remember it used to be so hard, just writing a line of code, right? But the moment like I start, it's just like I just go into this flow state where it's just like I'm just able to just like write all this code and create this program. And it's like it's just that initial step, right? That initial step is what's
Mhm.
always like the biggest challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
towards action, right? When you're not sure, you don't want to do something, you just wake up. Like even waking up, right? You don't want to wake up, you just have to like want to scroll. But as soon as you like be like,
just
fuck it,
wake
I'm just
up.
gonna wake up, you're gonna like take off your blanket and you come out, you're suddenly more fresher. You're like, okay, like but when you're in that bed and you don't want to wake up, like it's just there's so much reluctance.
Exactly, exactly. And I think it's definitely important. Like something that I've been like trying to do more is just have an action bias, right? So if I think about
Mm,
something, I'm like, just do it.
yes,
Like just do it. Like don't even like just do it. Like just act all the
exactly.
time. And the beauty about it is that like, you know, you can act. I think I remember reading this book, something about like just describing this little, it said it's a 3A process, right? You act, assess, and then adjust, right? So you
Mm,
act first and then you assess, you're like, okay, I did this action. What's the outcome? And then based on that outcome, that's when you adjust how you're going to act. And then you just repeat the process again. You act, assess, and adjust. Not assess, act, adjust, or like adjust, assess. It's
mm,
literally act first, then assess, then adjust. So that's something I've been really,
yes.
really trying to do a lot more. And it actually it works. It really, really does work. It makes a huge difference.
Mhm. Yeah, you'll notice it like in like a month or two, like you'll be doing more things, you'll be learning more things just because you've like biased yourself to action.
To act more. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right. So my next question is what does being a man mean to you?
Being a man, so that's a difficult question, right?
Uh,
Like, what is that at this point in our lives where we have so
right.
much like debate about what identity is and what
Mm,
gender means, gender roles mean. So I think like the way I would answer it and is like being a good person is all about being compassionate and being the
right.
person, and I've heard other people say this, is being the person that other people can count on during your parents funeral.
Mm,
Like
I like
being
that.
the person that other people can count on during your parents funeral, or your family can count on during your family's funeral, your parents funeral. Be like
Interesting.
the person that other people depend on. I think that is
Yeah.
what I think being a man or being a good person is, being a
a good person,
It's
right?
like, mhm.
Right. So now my question is like that being said, how do you navigate life as this good man or this good person? What's your approach?
um s- Again, like there's like three things, right? I'm intentional about how I live. I'm intentional about being more competent, right? I know
Right,
we've all heard this, like you put on your gas mask first and then help others. If you
right.
cannot put on your gas mask, you don't have the ability to help others. I'm
That's
sure
true.
like in other like cultures, there are like other forms of motivation that where you help others before you help yourself. But for me
Right,
personally, I'm the kind of person I want to be more competent so I can like enlarge my size of impact. And that is what I am doing. It's being intentional, being more competent, and at the end, doing small things every week so that you don't forget where you come from,
where you
right?
come from,
Either
right.
it's
That's
praying, right?
interesting.
Either it's
Yeah,
volunteering, because it's easier to forget like where you come from when you
it's true.
are suddenly in a very favorable position, like
Right.
you never were. Like right now, I'm an associate consultant in Bain, which is like the best consulting company in the
It
world,
is. It is.
and you come from a place where like you didn't even know what consulting was. You were told that going to schools like Harvard and Stanford were not in your fate because like we're very fatalistic, and it's like it's not in our fate to go to schools like that. And now I feel as if
It's
like
possible. The possibility is there now.
it's not just possible, like I'm
It's
probably
doable.
sure I can like yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
it's
it's
doable. It's like,
accessible. It's like just
yeah,
making the decision. If I want to go anywhere I can, right? But at that
right.
time it was more fatalistic. It's like, oh, you're not, it's not in your fate to do this, it's not in our fate to like be smart, it's not in our fate to be like intelligent, because we're like poor farmers. Like my grandparents were nomads, so right, they were
Interesting.
like, oh, we're nomads, we're like that's our what our faith is. But no, like, and
Right.
so that's why like doing small things to remember where you come from, it's either by praying, it's either by doing small volunteering work, but always remembering, oh, where you've come from and how far you've come. Because I know
Yeah.
like we always pay attention to how far we have to go and we forget to be grateful for how far
So far
we've come.
gone. Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think it definitely builds up your humility, right? It makes you, because it's very easy to, like, as you're achieving all those things and you're getting receiving all these accolades, and you're making moves and whatnot. It's very easy to get caught up in your head thinking that, like, hey, like, I'm good, like I'm making it, like things are great. But having that sense of humility allows you to realize that, like, things are good right now, right? Doesn't mean it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
good all the
Mm-hmm.
time, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like you said, right? It's being able to recognize just that journey, right? That experience of, like, how you were before you achieved all these things, or just the journey of that's taking you to come, and just it really does humble you a lot, because then it helps you also appreciate just the effort that you've put into what you've been trying to achieve as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's a really good like saying by Seneca, I think in Stoicism, is like what he says is
Right.
like, you can take everything that I have right now and I can build it back up in
That's
time,
true.
And that
Mm,
actually happened to him. He was like a very big businessman, owned a lot of ships, but there was a whole old storm, and they wiped out his entire fleet or something, and he was poor again.
right.
And then he built it back to the place. It's like about being competent, and everything else follows, no matter
Right.
where you are, right? Like
Right.
I'm
That's true.
sure, yeah, like I know even if I go back to Nepal, the developing country, where not a lot of opportunities as the States, right? There's no like big consulting company there, of course, right?
Right.
But I know like I'm in a place where I can build whatever I am, whatever I want to do, right? And that's what you're doing too, right? Like when
Exactly.
people think of like going from US to Kenya, you'll be like, they're like, why would you do that? But I know like you're very intentional, you're like moving forward and you're building stuff where you are.
Right.
And that's like
Absolutely.
very admirable in my opinion.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. But yeah, I agree. 100%. I agree. All right, man. We're pretty much coming towards the end of this interview. Do you have any
Mm.
questions for me?
So what's next for you? So I know you said like, what's next for you in the sense that you're doing a lot. I saw that you're doing personal advice, improving yourself, doing a podcast. I'm sure you're like developing an app somewhere. So what's next? What how does this all connect?
How does it all connect? It's a really good question. Well, so the whole like the business side of things does all connect, right? The YouTube channel, the coaching, they're all related because they're all around the theme of like self-improvement and everything. So the plan is just to build that platform to be its own independent entity, scale it to the point where, you know, it's a global organization, has multiple people working in different countries. You know, it would be the well, the vision is that, you know, I wanted to reach a point where I'm not the cog in the wheel for the system, right? Like I built this organization that can run in itself, and I can take a step back and focus on like different interests, right? So ideally, you know, it's just building this as a media company essentially, and having the coaching business as well, building those out together. On the other side, like obviously, like I'm working, so I work for a startup. I help them build their product and commercial infrastructure, and you know, like our vision is to build like a unicorn in Africa. So there's that too. I invested interested in that vision as well. So yeah, that's that pretty much, like career wise. I hope I answered your question in a sense.
Okay, so where does so is it like a bias for action that's making you do all of this stuff, right? Or did you like planned it? I would ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so the YouTube channel was actually like a 2 month thought process, right? It's funny because it was like, and it's so funny that I think about it now, that like even in uni, like I'd always play around with the idea of like starting a YouTube channel, but I just didn't know what to start it about or like what to talk about. Like I remember those times where I'd do like video journals, right? And I'm like, one day I'll put these on YouTube, right? So I'll just like record like how I'm feeling like during the morning and like just random things, right? Like that. And then just coming back home, like, you know, I'll talk to some of my friends and family members, like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And they're like, do it, just do it. So eventually I was just like, you know what? Like, let me just do it. So I put out the first video, got a great response, like over 100 views in less than 24 hours. And I was like, all right, that's very validating, right? So I was like, all right, so this is something that, you know, I should just keep on building upon, right? And just putting out content because it's something that people can see value in, right? And then even like the content in itself, right? This is just how do I put it? It is me sharing a lot of the things I've learned over the many years in my like own self-improvement journey, like things I've read, things I've experienced, all that stuff. Is just me sharing that, right? And it's not me coming in as like being an expert, but more as like, okay, I'm not an expert, I'm learning just as much as you are, but I feel like I've learned some things that can help you on your journey. It can help, I guess, accelerate your journey, right? You don't have to read the 10 or 20 books that I've read, or do like, I don't know, the different financial investments that I've done and like lost money on, right? But like, you know, I'm just like, all right, I've done X, Y, and Z. This is what worked. You can try it for yourself, say it works for you. You might not get the same results, but that's just one avenue. Like let's accelerate your path in a sense, right? So that is that. It's just realizing that like coming to understand that there's like a lot of the stuff that I want to share. I think that it can be valuable to some people, and a lot of people, and can really help them. And I think that's like the most important thing, right? It's just being of service to people and just trying to help them in some way or the other. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think it's a very noble goal to have. And I clearly feel it. I see your Instagram stories sometimes and I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's go. Like, you know, I definitely, just by seeing like somebody like working toward the goals, it's so admirable. And just the act of a person just like trying to be the best version of themselves. And when you surround yourself with people like that, you're suddenly become the average of everyone, right? And
exactly.
you're like, oh fuck, I need to do something too.
Exactly.
Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing.
no, absolutely. No, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Thanks for your question. I really do appreciate that a lot. Yeah, and you're right, 100%. It's like, you know, a lot of, I feel that a lot of people, myself included, right? you don't feel the need to want to change or improve unless you see something, like unless you see someone like doing something or acting, and then you're like, wait a minute, like this guy is doing all these things, like why can't I? And like the truth is, like, why can't you? Because there's literally no difference between myself and you, right? It's just like I'm just like performing and doing certain things that you just haven't started doing yet, right? So that's so the hope is that at least like when you seeing me doing all these things, that motivates you to now actually start taking action on the things that you should be doing, right? Exactly. So yeah, 100%. Awesome, man. I mean, thank you so much for making the time. I really enjoyed this conversation 100%. I appreciate you a lot. So my last thing is, like, where can people connect with you? Is there anything that you want to plug or promote on this episode?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Tenzin Tsundu. I think I'm the first person that comes up. TNZIN TSUNDU. My Instagram is ttsundu108, but it'll probably be deactivated following our conversation.
Right.
And yeah, I don't have anything to add, but like follow and subscribe. He's definitely putting on good content that I would think that it would be valuable to you. And finally, like, just try to be the best version of yourself and live your life with intention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that plug. For anyone watching, all his links to his social accounts will be below in the description, so you can just scroll on and find it. So for everyone watching, just thank you so much for joining us on this episode. This has been AlphaDelta, a podcast series on my YouTube channel. The whole purpose of all this is just to motivate and inspire people to become the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Joe Karuki, and I'm joined here with my guest, Tenzin Tsundu, and it is goodbye from us.